Wait, don't leave yet. Hey, welcome to The Whole Truth, everyone, where I am taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and we are not skipping anything. So if that sounds good to you, reach down, hit the little subscribe button below. Don't forget you can go over to thewholetruthbiblestudy.com and find all the videos in one location, plus ways to support the channel, and also all the new and upcoming things that are happening. I'll be trying to make sure to put there, like the Bible study that I'm working on. I'm going to try to get that uploaded. So it ought to be really great. I hope you guys will go over and visit that. But there's a more important thing, a much more important thing. Grab your Bible. Open up your Bible to Numbers chapter 10 and find verse 29. We remember from the last video that Israel was on the move. For the first time, Israel was moving after over a year. So before God had brought them out of Egypt, they were escaping out of Egypt or exiting out of Egypt, and they had come to Sinai. Now they're moving toward something. God had prepared them for what was to come. They were moving into the promised land. Today, we come to the brother-in-law of Moses. Let's see what happens with this guy. It's Numbers chapter 10, verse 29. Hope you got it. Now Moses said to Hobab, the son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, we are setting out for a place of which the Lord said, I will give it to you. Come with us, and we will treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel. And he said to him, I will not go, but I will depart to my own land and to my relatives. So Moses said, please do not leave, inasmuch as you know how we are camped in the wilderness, and you can be our eyes. And it shall be, if you will go with us, indeed it shall be, that whatever good the Lord will do to us, the same we will do to you. And so they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them for 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was above them by day, and they went out from the camp. And that ends us right there in verse 34. We'll pick up tomorrow with the prayer of Moses. But today, I want to talk about this Hobab guy. So obviously, Moses has a brother-in-law. Now, don't get all bent out of shape about Moses' father-in-law being named Jethro in one place and then Reuel here in Numbers chapter 10. Don't get all bent out of shape about that. That does not prove different sources. That does not prove that different authors, like one was Moses and one was another guy. That is not what that proves. There is plenty of evidence. I don't think I want to, in this video or in these video series, try to go over the biblical evidence and the extra biblical evidence to prove that in that time in the world and in that place that it was common for someone to have one name and then have another name. I'll just give you one example. Well, a couple of examples real quick would be Abram became Abraham. You had Jacob becomes Israel. We see changes of people's names all the time. That's one. And number two, we see the usage of people's names all the time in that area of the world and in different writings, whether biblical or not. So it's not an uncommon thing for somebody to have one name and then have another name. And that expanded even into the New Testament. So it does not prove the Bible wrong, and it does not prove that there was a different author besides Moses. Neither of those things is true. Moses wrote the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, what we're reading right now in Numbers. This is Moses who wrote this, and I'm certain that he knew the name of his father-in-law. And so his brother-in-law, his name is Hobab. Hobab, now that he sees that Israel is getting up and moving, Hobab wants to go back. Where does he want to go back to? Not Egypt. He don't want to go in slavery. No, that's not what he's trying to do. He wasn't trying to be enslaved. He was trying to go back to his people in his land, not in Egypt, but he was going to go back home to where he was from. And Moses says, whoa, wait, stay with us, and I promise we'll treat you well. Why is it that Hobab wanted to leave? Well, he wanted to go back home to his people. Because as he's watching all of these people, they've all got a place. They're all getting up. They're all marching. They're all doing like their thing. They're all kind of incorporated. Remember like one camp was going to move, and then the next camp was going to move, and then the tabernacle was taken down, and then the next camp was going to move. That was all earlier in the chapter and in my last video. But remember, as those things were happening, now think that there's this Hobab guy, and he's like, I don't have a camp. I'm not encamped with any of the people of Israel. I don't necessarily have a place. So Moses is saying, please stay with us. Hobab says he's going to leave. Moses says stay with us, but Hobab says, no, I'm not going to stay. I'm not going to go with you because I'm going to go to my people. I'm going to go to where I belong. And so Moses has to come to him a second time. And I want to point out what Moses does in the second time. And I think that you and I could learn quite a bit about this, especially for our lives at church. Those of you who are church leaders ought to be paying attention and listening as Moses, a great leader, as Moses did something. First, he says, pay attention. He says to them, as in verse 29, Moses said to Hobab, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, he said, we're setting out for a place which the Lord said, I will give to you. Come with us and we will treat you well, for the Lord has promised good to us. So first thing he's doing is including Hobab and saying, hey, we'll treat you well. We're not going to treat you badly. We're not going to enslave you or your people. We want to treat you well. You've been with us. You've moved with us. You've been here at the mountain with us. We're thankful for that. And the knowledge, whatever knowledge it was and good that it was that Moses saw in Hobab. I mean, he points out to Hobab, like, you can be our eyes. You can be our ears. You can help keep a lookout. So maybe Hobab had something to do with security in Israel and what was happening, watching out for enemies and those sorts of things. Whatever it might have been, he says, we'll treat you well. Like, you've done well with us. We'll treat you well. Now pay attention. Hobab says, no, I'm not going to go. In verse 30, he says, I will not go, but I will depart to my own land and to my relatives. Now look, this is what Moses does. So do you see what I'm saying to you? Like, Hobab is distancing himself, saying, like, that's your people. Y'all have your thing. You're moving, but I'm going to go back to my people and do my thing. Look at what Moses does. Here we go. Here's the practical application of verse 31. Moses said, please do not leave, inasmuch as you know how we are to camp in the wilderness. You can be our eyes. It shall be, if you will go with us, indeed it shall be, that whatever good the Lord does to us, the same we will do to you. So Moses goes from the first one being, hey, we'll treat you well, to and Hobab says, you go with your people. You guys are set out. I'm going back to my people. I'm going to go back to my land. Moses jumps in one last time. He sees the value in Hobab. And so he does one more thing. He says, hey, you know we're going to be camped in Israel, or you know we're going to be camped in the wilderness. You know that we're going to be Israelites are going to be camped in the wilderness. You can help to be our eyes. You can help to be our ears. You can help to be on the lookout. We need you. We could use you. We could use your work and your service. Would you please come with us? And he says, and if you'll do that, you know that the Lord's moving here. You know that the Lord's working here. Whatever good the Lord does to us, we're going to treat you the same. We're going to treat you well. So not only does he have this kind of bracket of we'll treat you well, but he includes him in the work. I want you to hear this, especially you church leaders. I need you to hear this. People don't just want to be treated well. They want to be included. If you're in your church and you're struggling to grow in your church, or maybe you're struggling to grow in your Sunday school class or your small group, if you've been struggling with a group and you're going, why? What's going on? I want you to hear this. People want to be. We all do. I want to be, and you want to be. We want to be involved. Now, the job of the leader is to find where we can fit these people, where we can fit each person to have their role. Einstein used to say that if you judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, you'll always think it's an idiot. Now, I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that statement, because the truth of the matter is not everybody is fit for every job, and not everybody is fit for the job that they think that they want. I can't tell you the number of people that want to do something in church, and then as I examine them and talk with them, come to find out it is not a good fit for them to be in that place. I mean, I had this guy one time telling me he wanted to work with youth. He wanted to work with youth. He wanted to work with youth. And then I would get him around youth, and I'm telling you, he was bitter and mean. And he'd be like, man, these kids bug me. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, if you don't like kids, why are you trying to work with youth? Like, what is the disconnect here? And he would still insist he wanted to work with youth. And I'm going to shorten the story and just tell you that by the end of it, you know what I found out? He was just nervous to talk in front of adults, so he thought it would be easier to talk in front of kids. That was not a good way to go about that. That just because he wanted that job didn't mean that he should have that job. However, there was definitely a place that he could serve. And he did, and still does, by the way, still serves, because we took the time to find a way to incorporate him. And for you who might be struggling and going, what is wrong? Why am I so irritated with my church? Why am I so irritated with my church people? Are you serving in the capacity that God is calling you? Because a lot of times what you're finding is that the disconnect that you feel is because you're actually not doing it. You feel like everybody else is doing something, but you're not doing anything. Like everybody else is moving on, but you're not a part of that. You need to be incorporated into the group. And sometimes, you know what? Forgive your leaders, because sometimes maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know you're feeling that way. Maybe they don't realize that you're feeling underused, or that you're feeling like you've got something to offer, but that they're not taking advantage of that. Listen, everybody has something to offer. You definitely have something to offer. But just because your church leadership doesn't see that doesn't mean that it's not there. And it doesn't mean that you should be bitter towards them either. What it means is that we've got to be working together. The church leadership ought to be including and working with our people, bringing them in and finding a place for them to belong. And you, if you're in a place where you feel like you don't belong, where could you fit in? What holes could you help to fill? You know, if you look and you see a hole, I had my kids patching walls with me. We had done this big remodel upstairs, and we had the mud and the trowel, and the kids kept going, do I need to put mud here? Do I need to put mud here? Do I need to put a little, you know what I'm talking about, like drywall mud? Like, do I need to put a little mud here? Do I need to put a little mud here? Spackle, if you will. And I kept going, yeah, put it there. Yes, put it. Yes, there's nail holes in the wall from the old drywall. Like, yes, put some there. Finally, I said, guys, stop. If there's a hole in the wall, mud it. If there's a hole in the wall, put some spackle on it. If you're in your church and you see a hole, spackle it. You can do that. You can be involved. And I'll promise you this, if you'll start serving, you'll feel a whole lot better about the rest of the things that are happening in your church or the things that you've been disgruntled about. Find yourself a place to belong. And church leaders, don't forget, it's your job to minister to people. And God made us, all of us, to be working individuals. There are people in your church who can do the job. Let them help put them to work. They need it. It's good for them. It's good for their church health. It's good for your church health. You see what happened? Moses says, you can be our eyes. He's going to put him to work. And he says, and we're still going to be good to you. And in verse 33, so they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days. Hobab went with them. As a matter of fact, you even see his descendants in the book of Judges when there's a particular lady who takes a tent peg and sticks it down through the temple of a guy who was like oppressing Israel. That is a descendant of Hobab right here. The guy that was going to leave, the guy that was going to miss the blessings. Moses said, hey, don't miss the blessings. Come with us. Be our eyes. He incorporated Hobab into the camp. That's what we need to be doing with our people in church, getting them incorporated, finding where they can serve and how they can serve best. And I hope that you'll do that. I hope that you're serving in your church. You'll feel a whole lot better about your church and about your church family if you'll get yourself involved and get to serving. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you come back tomorrow as we see the prayer that Moses makes every time the cloud is lifted and they get ready to move. See you guys.